10,000 hours. And the literal debate we have as adults who should know better is borderline ridiculous. Why can't you be down whether it's 3,000 or 30,000? It's a shitload of time. That's the reality. It all depends on what you count, for a start. But we don't get it, do we? So, lots of questions. Lots of questions. One of the key things for me that I'm very disturbed about is that when I started thinking about this particular topic, athlete development, back in about '98, after we had relatively poor performances at the National Olympics, I started to wonder why. We started to look at the actual resource, the human resource that we had coming through our athletic pool in Calgary in particular. By the early 2000s, I started to solidify my own biased views of the world in this particular area. And there is room for every opinion. There is room for everyone's contribution, as long as that contribution is making a positive one. By 2004, 2005, as a group of us stood on our soapbox and initiated the first embarrassing pop science document at this stage, as we look back on the Canadian Sport for Life article that we wrote. 14 years have passed since I started thinking about this. And what's worse, that was built on probably 30 to 40 years of reasonable literature in the area, and another 50 to 80 years in my area of exercise physiology of well-established academic text in the area. And that on top of several millennia of observational information going as far back as the Greeks and the Egyptians, which we choose to ignore, while we petty argue with each other about little nuances, whether what we should do this lactate set with a bunch of 8-year-olds, or whether we reduce the size of the ice. Give me a break. It's pathetic. Contribute positively or F off. So, let's think about a few things as we move on. We question a number of aspects about long-term athlete development, and I've deliberately drawn it like this, stretched out the word long-term, to make you understand, as you probably do, I'm the one behind the microphone right now, to make you understand that this is a process. In fact, reducing long-term athlete development to 4 little letters, LTAD, does a great disservice to that process. It often then magnifies that it's some kind of fixed entity. It is not. It is an organic entity. It changes over time as we improve our knowledge base. It is not one thing, it's a framework. Simple. And there is a clear difference when we use words such as believe versus know. The messaging is important. However, at times it becomes stymied into inaction by the indecision of us, or inaction or incorrect interpretation, or literal views of the world, or worse still, opposition. And particularly, to be quite blunt, jerk-off opposition. Or did I mean knee-jerk? No, I meant jerk-off. The type of stuff where with a little bit of effort, you shoot some stuff all over the place, and you don't stay around and clean up the mess. Quite literally. And people do that all the time. Pot shots at everything. So, understand this very clearly. It is a process of athlete development. It happens over a long period of time. Who in this room, as we start to look at this particular line of information, first 2 decades of life, who in this room believes that children, unless there's some kind of medical condition, grow in height over these 20 years? Who believes that? Well, I'm very happy for you. Who in the room knows it? Okay, distinct difference between those two phrases. And we often talk about it. Oh, I believe in LTAD. What? What are you talking about? It's action that leads to growth over the first 2 decades of life, and beyond, of course. The belief aspect, supported heavily by increasing knowledge, the Kaizen, is about improving our information about what we do with that particular process. So for example, we all know this happens in our youngsters. You go to school. Even school has known it since year dot, that it's a process. You go to grade 1. It has a grade 1 curriculum. You even may be size appropriate, sitting at a small desk. You go to the washroom. There's small sinks, small urinals, small stalls. Everyone gets it. As soon as we start talking about sport and physical activity, the rules are thrown away, and we all become morons instantly. So, grade 1 through grade 12, they process. The exams become more serious, in the same way that competition in sport becomes more serious as you move through the ranks. You can have other things. I'm going to caution you here because there could be a literal interpretation of these diagrams, but it was very late at night when I put them together and I wasn't really thinking that straight. On the right-hand side, that elite box shows a nice little firm, clear end on the right-hand side. Don't take it literally. Open it out. Squint your eyes and allow for some blurring. It goes on, okay? In the same way that the little lines in between are not fixed entities either. They overlap, they blur. It's just a guide, it's a framework, it's a cartoon to give you an idea and to make sure I'm on track. You can have other ones. These are other terminologies, all suggesting process. You can look at various parts of the academic literature. Certain groups will talk about early, mid, late childhood, adolescence, all pointing very clearly, based on evidence, of phases, of stages, interlinked, all the way through this very pivotal time in a human's life. And we get other researchers that delve into the world of athletics and acquisition. This is one particular example. I'm going to show some others where E stands for entry, some kind of sampling phase, specialization, investment, and possibly moving on to some kind of need. Nothing wrong with that. Fabulous. Tremendous. Read it with interest. Take it into the smorgasbord of all the other literature in the area, which basically says all the same stuff. It just depends on the colour of your coat and how biased you are as to how you interpret it. And then finally, a few years ago, on the back already of a decade's worth of work, we utilised one particular terminology, a terminology that does nothing more than suggests a process, an ascending process. And that's this one that we've become known with. And remember again, to blur your eyes, squint your eyes, blur the edges a little bit. Because I don't want any hate email over this. Okay? It's pretty simple. It's just a guide. It's a framework. So you can see, if you go back up to the top, there's a hell of a lot of stuff that's going on with these children and youth that is beyond our control. That biological clock is ticking along, thank you very much. Tick, 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 tick. Okay? Within this long-term process, therefore, these biological advances that are taking place, largely beyond our control. Yes, we're entering an age of genetic manipulation, but largely these are beyond our control. However, the one area that we are supposed to concentrate on, given our understanding, at least as it stands here, with the academic literature around biological advancement and changes in our youth and gender differences, etc., the one thing that we should be focusing on is the interventions superimposed, our facilities, our coaching methods, the content that we are actually trying to impose onto the lives of these children and youth as they develop. That's our focus. And anyone that doesn't want to get involved in positively contributing to that, as far as I'm concerned, is not worth the time of day. Anyone can point a finger. Anyone can take pot shots. Excuse me while I catch up. So, what are we all about? These interventions reason why it was written into the original Pop Science article is this: Kaizen, continual improvement. These are the things I look for. Every day I go to work, and I realize that the gulf between what I know and what I don't know in any particular area is widening all the time, and unfortunately not in my favor. That's the reality. That's why it's this movement of ours, Canadian Sport for Life, with its massive growth in human resource, is phenomenal, because we can harness people that contribute positively to this endeavour. But it is also greatly demoralising, perplexing, and downright pissing off when people do not contribute positively. Canadian Sport for Life. Canadian. It means the whole country pulling together. Every last square foot, every last person, sea to sea to sea. Why? Because every last child living now, and every last child to be, deserves our attention. And for us to bring the best possible things to bear, we will need everyone to contribute positively to that endeavour. Who, in their right mind, would argue against that? That would be the first question I would ask after I'd slapped them around the head a couple of times. The beauty about Canadian Sport for Life is it is all about working together. And where it suddenly moves away simply from the golden thread of long-term athlete development and that particular process is it brings into play health and education, activities, sport, fun, those that are capable of working in the professional areas of activities and sport, structured and unstructured components. It's multifaceted. And hence a challenge for us, because with being multifaceted brings differences of opinion. There's nothing wrong with differences of opinion if it helps to move the process further forward. And after all, we are attempting system change here. We're just using the resources that we have to bring to bear along that process. But we have to get the hazard warning. Tonight I'm here a little bit to finish off about this. But I want to pump you up because we have a fight on our hands. There's no doubt about it. We've had a version 2 draft of the Canadian sport policy almost hijacked by people with various biases. After an enormous amount of work by people right across the country, sea to sea to sea, we have to, very clearly, as Giuliani said, stand up to the bullies. We must stand up to the bullies. They come with bias. They want to push us out of the way. They have their own ulterior motives. They do nothing to add to the process. Now, I've used these slides before, and I make no apology for doing this. This is from Sutton, and this is his little ditty, The No Asphalt Rule. This is a book doing the rounds of the main business schools. You can even calculate the TCA in major corporations, and some do. I read a report the other day to Lloyd Touche, where they had calculated the TCA in a particular department just as a fun exercise. And TCA stands for the total cost of assholes. These are the people that start the activity, that don't bring innovation to the table. And the real problem with dealing with these people, and we see them all the time, at any strata, in any of the endeavours that we're dealing with right now, they lead to negative effects. Because unfortunately, when you have these people around, you don't get any Kaizen, you don't get any innovation, you certainly don't get any cooperation, because why would you want to cooperate with an asshole? You don't get any cohesion, because everyone knows it's an asshole. Will you attract the best? And we've heard a lot of that. I pray every day that the second new Vice President of WinSport will be a darn sight better than me. in the same way that I hope my graduate students in the past will be better than me. And I hope our incarnations of Canadian Sport for Life and the guideline framework of long-term athlete development in Canada is far better in 5 years and 10 years than it is now. That's the hallmark of our movement. So we don't attract the best when you have our assholes lying around the place, or bullies. Easy to take pot shots, as I've said before. It doesn't take anyone with any semblance of intelligence or goodwill or ability to act in the greater good and leave their particular bias at home. It's very easy to do that. We have to understand that the long-term athlete development process is a golden thread that weaves through the global construct of our Canadian Sport for Life initiative. There are so many moving parts that the people that take top pot shots can easily find a target, whether it's on the physiology side, the psychology side, the structural side, the governance side, the whole damn side. It's easy. When I ask you at the end, the questions are, why would you not want to help a program that is designed to make sure that we improve the lot of children around their physical activity and potentially the quality of life, as well as finding those few that can represent Canada on the international performance stage of sports? And when you come across people who present different arguments, ask them to submit their responses. Invite them in. Help them to improve the process, correct, increase our knowledge base, and contribute positively. On that note, I'd like to leave you with 4 things that I've learned over the last 3 Winter Olympic cycles. I say this a lot at times, and please pardon me for those of you who have heard it before. Many people expect me to talk about physiology or talk about the Olympics, but it's much broader than that when you step back and allow yourself some time to think. The first thing is, and it's pivotal around what we are doing here, is that the best people, the best athletes, the best coaches, the best programs, the best movements, make choices others don't. We are choosing to do this. We're choosing this. Many of us are volunteers around this particular endeavor. It's added to our toil. It's added to our stress. But the interesting thing is, those that don't do this, the vast majority, are often seen and make comments about, that's stupid. Oh, we tried that. I've got a better idea, but I'm not going to do it. On the same token, there's others that think, wow, that is awesome. We can't do that. It's incredibly brave of you to try. But we hold to that straight and narrow in the middle. We're going to make this choice, and we're going to make it stick. The other thing is speed wins. And yeah, you'll think about speed in performance, but I'm talking about speed of decision making and speed of action. And as you can tell, I'm frustrated. The time it takes to put things into action. That's why we need many hands to move things faster, to learn from each other, to know where there are signature processes elsewhere in the country. Signature processes that say these are things that work. This is how we've done it. Vancouver Sport for Life, whatever it might be, small town initiatives, and learn from each other so we don't have to keep making the same mistakes in every part of the country. We can learn and bypass those things. The third thing is, of course, comes back to this aspect of Kaizen. I know the term Kaizen originally, something that was born out of our group getting together. But I certainly knew about relentless improvement and the concept of thinking both inside and outside the box. They're one and the same. Constant evaluation, constant striving to move forward, intelligence gathering so that we can keep ahead of the curve in any area we choose. That is a great commitment. It's hard work. That's why the vast majority of organizations don't do it. It takes effort. We've already committed to this direction, and I applaud you for that. applaud you for being here. And finally, whatever happens is normal. Change happens. I look in the mirror every day and I wonder where that young, handsome, debonair young man went. Change happens. That's life. Get over it. If you can't cope, and you start to become an asshole, and sit there, move out of the way. And then the final note. It is absolutely crucial, that we work together. We bring up point and counterpoint. We challenge and move this forward in absolutely area of behaviour that we have around Canadian sport for life and the process of long-term athlete development. Thank you very much.